try to imagine a solution to everything. Not just the problems of the world or the universe, but everything in existence. How do we reach this perfect world? And what will it cost to bring that vision to life? Since their creation at the hands of Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, the Fantastic Four have stood as a monument to our limitless hope and imagination. A family bound together through a shared love of adventure. While the team shared countless stories over the years, taking them into the fringes of the unknown, even hope can start to dwindle over time. Decades of fear brought on by the information age would lead to a darker vision of the future, but it would be Marvel's Civil War that ultimately fractured the Four, with Reed Richards' role in Iron Man's regime driving a wedge between himself and his family. While talented writers like J. Michael Straczynski and Dwayne McDuffie would take steps to reunite the team, readers were still looking for someone to bring back what made them great in the first place, their desire to explore the unknown and build the foundations of a better tomorrow. This return to form would arrive through writer Jonathan Hickman in a sprawling 3-year run that would leave ripples across the entire Marvel universe, re-establishing the Richards family as its beating heart. Pulling from the team's past, present, and future, Hickman and an extensive team of artists, inkers, colorists, and letterers would deliver a saga that would redefine the Fantastic Four, both as the world's greatest comic magazine and the family behind it all. Even the grandest stories have to begin somewhere, and for writer Jonathan Hickman, the story of his Fantastic Four begins with one man, Reed Richards. Arriving on the book in 2009 with little knowledge about the team, Hickman began devouring the title's previous stories, where he found two major sources of inspiration: the FF's dual identity as both team and family, and Reed's transformation into a colder, more pragmatic figure. While comics in the early 2000s had been embracing a darker tone for some time, Reed's involvement in Marvel's Illuminati and Iron Man's pro-registration forces were seen as a complete betrayal both in and out of fiction, with the rest of the FF leaving him behind as his desire for a perfect world boiled over into an obsession. Countless writers would address this shift, with Straczynski and McDuffie having Reed and Sue rebuild their marriage, while Mark Millar would bring back the team's high-concept adventures. But for Hickman, Reed's turn showed something deeper, a shift in his outlook from boundless optimism to something colder and darker, something that Reed would have to confront within himself for the team to move forward.
Let me guess, you want to fix things.
We can help with that.
Who are you?
We're just like you, Reed.
And we'll be here waiting when you're ready.
But don't take too long. There's no telling how much worse things could get.
Picking up in the wake of Marvel's Dark Reign, Hickman's run begins with an incredible discovery. Traveling through dimensions on a device called the Bridge, Reed has come into contact with his multiversal counterparts, who have banded together into a Council of Reeds, determined to prevent threats and solve problems on a universal scale. While Hickman had seeded this concept in an earlier, much weirder story, the writer would spend his first arc defining the Council and what they represent within Reed, his struggles between his own humanity and the greater good he desperately wants. This inner turmoil is elevated through Dale Eaglesham's art, which draws heavily from the imagery of rugged adventurers like Tom Strong and Doc Savage, idealized figures dedicated to the mission above all.
Reed is more intimidating and forceful, and less the nerdy professor,
Eaglesham states.
I want villains to be afraid of him physically as well as of his mind. That's not to say I want to wash the humor or any goofiness out of Reed or his relationships, far from it. I want to maintain that, but add to it the imposing presence of a brilliant scientist and a powerful superhero. This combination is a lot of fun to explore.
Across these events, Hickman draws a parallel between Reed and his father Nathaniel, another great thinker who left his family to serve what he saw as a higher purpose. It's this tension that becomes the bedrock of Hickman's first arc. Which is worth more, duty or family?
This is a dream made reality. a place to become something greater than what you were. We would like for you to join us. It's time you reached your full potential.
Through the Council and their actions, the writer elevates Reed into something more mythic than the standard superhero, a great man driven to do great works. Hickman has returned to the concept of the great man throughout his career, but Fantastic Four delivers his most pointed commentary on it. Reed's dedication to science is admirable, but becomes dangerous and self-destructive when left unchecked. Without his family, he is lost. He's compromised,
I've certainly grown to love him more, but Reed's my favorite character,
states the author.
Because of Civil War and all that stuff that had happened, he was kind of a dick, right? Reed's responsible for a lot of stuff. He's always had all these plans of how to make things work, and if you think about it, he's been wrong a lot. I felt like I had to fix Reed in a way, and make him a more likable character again.
Using the Council, Hickman takes this character flaw to its natural conclusion, with the group's machinations bringing about its own destruction, their good deeds crushed under the weight of countless necessary evils. But even in failure, there is hope. While the Council's obsession traps them in their mission, Reed manages to find a better way, not just embracing his family, but letting them take up his mission alongside him. Nobody can build a better world on their own. They need help.
This, without this, means nothing. When you grow up, I expect more. Son, I expect better. I want you to be a better friend than I was. Be a better husband. Be a better father. Reed, be a better man.
The FF's dual role as team and family has been a huge part of their stories for decades, but the mix of one versus the other can change depending on who's writing. For Hickman, the priority was rebalancing the book's prime elements, setting the Richards' tight-knit family drama against sprawling universe-hopping adventures.
I've read more Fantastic Four in the last 2 to 3 months than I had in my entire life,
Recounts the writer.
One of the things that became pretty clear to me was that the Ultimate Fantastic Four title has had a big impact on the regular series. Fantastic Four is about fantastic adventures and the family, but when Ultimate Fantastic Four was launched, it kind of turned into a science explorers type book. The physics of something isn't the heart of the book. That's what I think we need to get back to. To me, Fantastic Four is about the family structure. It's about wild, chaotic, fantastic ideas, as opposed to how things work in a functional world.
While the book's second arc feels like a return to the classic Lee Kirby era, complete with family squabbles and little green men, the writer also has something much bigger at play, with countless threads converging into a mysterious prophecy built around the past, present, and future of the Richards family. 4 cities, each an inversion of Reed's perfect society, begin appearing across the Marvel universe, with the dark costs of each threatening everything in their path. Long story short, the FF's enemies have evolved, and overcoming these threats means the group will have to change too. Free of the Council, Reed and the team meet these new threats with boundless imagination, rejecting the cynicism of the larger scientific community to build a foundation of their own.
So we'll begin here, with you and me, with a new focus for your ongoing and never-ending education. Our curriculum will start at survival and end at the edge of an eternal tomorrow. Welcome to the Future Foundation. Together, there is nothing we can't do.
What follows is a complete transformation of the FF. As new members join the team, long-dormant plots finally come back into play, and each of the founding members develop larger roles in the Richards' ever-growing family unit. As these threads continue to spin Hickman's master story for the book, the sheer scale of what's at stake finally comes into focus, as the unshakable optimism of this new FF starts to collide with each new threat, leaving ripples across the universe. Only one force can prevail here, and Hickman's made it clear that the Richards family is the key to averting disaster. But how can hope endure when everything seems destined to end? How can one family survive a world where everything dies? Since his beginnings on the title, Hickman has built his Fantastic Four around 2 dueling philosophies: the FF's hope in a better tomorrow, and the grim realities of the universe. Everything that begins must also end. As the team fight threats from across their history, the events in Franklin's doomsday prophecy continue their march to a horrifying conclusion. This isn't just another superhero punch-em-up, it's a war against fate, against an end that seems increasingly inevitable. In sharp contrast to the Kirby-esque iconography of the earlier run, this third arc feels more real, tangible, and human, thanks in part to Steve Epting and Neil Edwards' more realistic pencils. A far cry from the rugged icons we've seen before, the FF's humanity becomes more apparent than ever as they're slowly overwhelmed by the forces of a hopeless universe. Hickman even brings back Nathaniel Richards as a living embodiment of this flawed outlook, revealing his hand in the creation of the Council of Reeds and the countless crises that have spiraled out of their actions. Acting out of his own self-preservation, Nathaniel has only doomed his family, a mistake that forces him to come to terms with his failings as both a father and a scientist. This wave of nihilism hangs over the book's third arc, splitting the founding members and pushing them to their limits to achieve the impossible. Reed returning life to a dying star, and Sue holding off a civil war in Atlantis, leaving Johnny and Ben standing between the kids of the Future Foundation and the endless hordes of annihilists. Some are rewarded for their faith, and for a moment, the writer even hints that everything might work out in the end. But as he's been saying since the beginning, things are about to change for the Fantastic Four. Even a team built on hope can't last forever in a universe that devours it. Something has to give, and when it finally does, it enacts a terrible cost.
So this is it. 1,000,000,000 to 1. You think I'm afraid of that? You think I'm afraid of that? Flame on.
If Hickman's earlier stories were a reinvention of what came before, his third arc's finale, fittingly titled 3, is his ultimate act of change for the team. Following the surviving members through a month of mourning, the writer and artist Nick Dragotta see the Fantastic Four broken beyond repair for the first time, with Reed, Sue, and Ben all on the edge of their personal abyss. The loss of Johnny Storm has fundamentally changed everything about the Fantastic Four and what they represent, but Hickman's crises are still on the horizon, and it's clear that the Richards family are the only ones who can stop it all. But how does a family endure when it's been broken apart? What keeps us going when the world gets too dark to bear? For the writer, that answer is hope. Hope that we can continue to evolve, to push past the impossible, to leave a better tomorrow for the next generation. Hope that what was lost can always be found again.
Hello, son. I'm home.
Since their arrival in 1961, the heroes of the Fantastic Four have stood as timeless icons of relatability and imagination, with their dysfunctional yet loving dynamic as Marvel Comics' first family taking them across the stars and into the frontiers of the unknown. But when tragedy strikes and that timeless bond is broken, the surviving members of the family will see their team and their mission evolve into something else entirely. Welcome to tomorrow. Welcome to the Future Foundation. To many, writer Jonathan Hickman's tenure on Fantastic Four is one of the title's most definitive runs, weaving together years of separate stories and firmly re-establishing the team as the beating heart of the Marvel Universe. Hickman would introduce countless iconic stories over his run, but the writer's greatest mark on the title would come through a 2011 relaunch, with the series re-emerging under the new title, FF. Following the team as they rebuild in the wake of an immense loss, the story acts as the through line for Hickman's vision of the Fantastic Four, digging deep into its characters and wresting cosmic, existential adventures atop a more grounded tale of grief and hope. But while the story acts as a reinvention of its characters and themes, it's also a celebration of Marvel's first family, and how even in the face of tragedy, hope and adventure can spring eternal. A Arriving on Fantastic Four in 2009, Hickman saw a premise and a team desperately in need of a reinvention. The events of Civil War and Secret Invasion had fractured the team and soured readers on the characters, namely Reed Richards, who had grown cold, controlling, and paranoid. In spite of spectacular runs by J. Michael Straczynski and Dwayne McDuffie, the Four's family dynamics began to take a back seat to the title's more fantastical elements, leading to a period mostly forgotten by critics and readers. Remember when Mark Millar turned Galactus into a big engine? Yeah, me neither. In Hickman's eyes, the solution wasn't just to bring the family dynamic back, but to make it the key underpinning in the Four's story.
I've noticed a number of writers try and turn Fantastic Four into sort of an I figured out this very cool scientific story type of book, and I think the series has lost a little bit of its heart,
mused the writer.
Family, future, and exploration are timeless universal concepts. Sure, they can be nostalgic, but they don't have to be. That's really the brilliance of a lot of the early Marvel characters. They were created by guys wrapping both arms around timeless themes.
Picking up in the aftermath of issue 587, FF opens with the family devastated by the loss of Johnny Storm, killed in battle against the villain Annihilus. Death has always been treated as something of an event in superhero comics, with publishers taking major characters off the board only to bring them back months later, usually to record sales. Hickman would eventually bring back the Human Torch, but the character's absence becomes a major catalyst for FF's cast, as each character fights to continue their mission in a world that's grown darker through this loss.
There are 100 reasons why. The world, our friends, the kids, but you can't stop what you're doing. You have to push harder than ever. Ignore how things are. Ignore how they seem. Make the world better. Always remember what you stand for. I love you guys.
All right, Johnny. All right. So, this is tomorrow.
Torch's death has left a mark on the surviving members of the Four, each trying to process their grief through different superheroics. Reed and Sue, spurred on by Johnny's last wish, throw their all into carrying on the fight for the future, while Ben Grimm continues to blame himself for the loss of his friend. Earlier arcs in Hickman's run deepen the dynamic between the team, but FF sees them expanded and wholly transformed, extending Marvel's first family into something bigger and more complex, complete with sleek, contemporary new designs. Characters throughout the team's history are brought into the fold, with some like Spider-Man, children Franklin and Valeria, and Reed's father Nathaniel acting to bolster the family. Others, like Dragon Man, various former villains, and even Doctor Doom, show an evolution beyond the group's original good versus evil premise in favor of something higher concept. Once a tight-knit family of explorers, the team is reborn as the Future Foundation, a coalition of the world's best and brightest dedicated to a single, powerful goal: to solve everything. Building on this newly expanded cast of characters, Hickman also used FF to elevate the title's stories. In place of the arc-to-arc storytelling seen under previous writers, Hickman steadily seeded threads that would grow over the course of his tenure, teasing them through cryptic warnings delivered to the team from the future.
Listen closely, because each word I say was chosen carefully. It's just for you, Val. No one else can know this. There will be a war between the four cities. The dead must not be forgotten. The future man must return to save the past, and all hope lies in doom.
Drawing from the scientific idea of catastrophe theory, FF's plot sees the culmination of these countless threads, pitting the newly minted Future Foundation against a gauntlet of multiversal threats. Enemies from across the team's history re-emerge, alien empires collide, and the most powerful beings in the universe begin to set their sights on Earth. As these seemingly separate events begin to come together, they coalesce into a threat unlike anything the Four have faced before. A prophecy spelling the end of the universe itself.
Everything else. The creation of the Future Foundation, the War of Four Cities. All of these things have only created more favorable conditions to do what must be done. We have to spread out the occurrence of events. We have to delay. We have to find more time.
And if we do that, we win?
If we do that, we'll have a chance.
The scale and creativity behind FF is staggering, but the greatest strength of the story lies in Hickman's ability to keep its spectacle tied to his core cast and their own personal journeys. Much like previous arcs, Hickman makes Reed Richards his primary lead in the story, continuing on his mission to solve his biggest challenge yet. The sheer enormity of what's to come hangs over Reed throughout the story, stretching him to his breaking point as he continually tries to outthink the inevitable. This sense of unease is built up even further over the course of the story, as Reed opens the team to uncertain alliances and increasingly desperate plans to stave off each new apocalypse. This expansion of the team also brings thrilling new character dynamics to the book, re-establishing the FF as an integral part of the Marvel Universe and deepening its core cast. Once the team's undisputed leader, Reed is given a new sense of emotional maturity through his father, family, and children, who push him to think beyond himself and balance his hope with a healthy dose of pragmatism. Spider-Man, a longtime friend of the Four and no stranger to tragedy himself, plays an important part in the team's transformation, acting as a much-needed emotional and moral check. The bright young minds of the Future Foundation build even further on the family dynamic at the heart of the group, acting as the evolution of Reed's own approach to building a better tomorrow. However, the biggest new addition to the team comes through its oldest rival, whose decades of history with the family see him transformed into a key player in their new mission. Drawing from decades of the title's history, FF crafts an emotional climax to a myriad of threads across Hickman's run, and somehow ends up opening the door to even more possibilities. Even after the series' conclusion and return to Fantastic Four, the writer would continue to elevate these stories in titles set across the Marvel Universe and beyond. This was only the beginning of a grander adventure for the Richards family.
Doom, 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 doom. Yes, here I can build.
Much like its plot, FF's presentation is the culmination of countless elements into a celebration of the team's history. Up until the relaunch, the title featured a stable of artists to keep up with deadlines, the most notable being Dale Eaglesham, whose art draws heavily from the retro-futurism and spectacle of Jack Kirby. While this approach continued through the book's relaunch, it feels much more focused in FF, with each artist deployed to a different corner of the story with a few notable exceptions. Greg Ticini's sketchy, expressionist style lends itself perfectly to the alien worlds of the Kree and Inhumans. Nick Dragata's sleeker, caricature style leans into the book's more surreal, experimental elements. Barry Kitson and Mark Brooks add a softness and warmth to the title's more hopeful moments, but Hickman's primary collaborator on FF, Steve Epting, leaves the biggest mark on the book's human element. While Epting matches the scope and wonder Eaglesham brought to Fantastic Four, he also brings a decompressed approach to FF's storytelling, shown through a tighter focus on faces, expressive mood lighting through inks, and repeating panels that heighten moments of tension or levity.
I said we need a backup.
Yes, a backup.
Yeah, exactly. I said we need a backup.
Child, you are trying Doom's patience.
I said we need a backup.
Kristoff.
Another key pillar in the title's presentation is its place in Hickman's larger saga at Marvel Comics. Over his tenure, the writer would boil the team's struggles down to an eternal battle between hope and despair, with countless threads crisscrossing into an operatic megastory. This may feel too massive and disconnected compared to the relatively intimate family stories of before, but Hickman makes sure to ground every development through the hopeful resilience of the Richards family, and the impact their love has on the universe around them.
They are the perfect family of an imperfect world, and they represent the hope of what could be,
muses the writer.
After all, what was it that made Reed choose his family when he should have chosen Utopia? What made Johnny sacrifice himself, and what brought him back? What broke an unbreakable Ben Grimm and then found a way to make him whole again? What made Susan strong enough to stand when the others fell? What made Nathaniel always come home? And what was it that made Val and Franklin sacrifice everything to save their father? It was love. Boundless, unconditional, to the end of time and back, lift you up from death itself, love. And what's not fantastic about that?
Coming at the peak of Hickman's tenure, FF is both a reinvention and celebration of what made the Fantastic Four so timeless in the first place. It can be hard to look at the future with hope, but it's our friends and family that give us the strength to face it all and shape it into something truly fantastic. Thanks for checking out my latest video. Just like my collection on X-Men, I wanted to take a big picture look at Hickman's time on the Fantastic Four the minute I started reading. This is a book with a lot of history and heart, and it's been great seeing how Hickman and his collaborators kept building on that while keeping it all very close to Lee and Kirby's original idea. And of course, this is just the first step in Hickman's larger plans for the Marvel Universe, so if you'd like to see me cover more of that, I'd love to hear it in the comments. As always, I'd like to give a special thanks to all the fellow creators who have lent their voices to the performances, as well as the countless creators who have made the FF what they are today. If you like this video, please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Every little bit helps the channel out a lot. I'd also like to give a special thanks to the Comics Cave, Dom DeFelice, Kirk Ireland, and my patrons, who are helping me to grow this channel and continue doing what I love, and hopefully what you love too. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay fantastic.